In the old days of air travel, passengers dressed up like they were going out on the town, greeted by stewardesses in crisp uniforms and white gloves who served cocktails with a smile. Flying wasn't just transportation, it was an event.
By the middle of the 20th century, airlines aren't competing with one another in terms of price. The basis of competition from one airline to the next is the perks, baby. And I'm not just talking about an eye mask, a pillow, a deck of cards, or those cute little wings. First class was as opulent as a modern-day cruise. You would have meals prepared, meat carved by your tableside, champagne in crystal glasses and decanters.
Even in coach, things were much nicer than today. Flight attendants were actually cooking breakfast, fresh eggs delivered on an aluminum tray. This golden age of air travel is romanticized in movies and on television, but the real experience was not all that romantic. Flying in the 50s and 60s, a lot of planes still had propellers, which meant that they were really turbulent.
And as much as you want to sit there and enjoy your freshly carved roast beef or your glass of champagne, you can't while you're, fearing for your life, being thrown around like a ball in a bingo hopper.
Passengers get physically ill regularly, and often they end up covered in vomit. Things are so bad that one airline has to rip up all of its carpeting and replace it with rubber mats.
And it's not just the turbulence leading to queasy stomachs.
They used to let people smoke on planes, and not only let you smoke on planes, they would literally provide you with cigarettes as a perk of flying on the plane. But if you're a non-smoker, the entire experience becomes really noxious.
So now picture the plane shaking violently, stinking of cigarette smoke. And you're also dealing with the fact that the fuselage is not the modern airframe that we think of, which means that hydraulic fluid and engine oil and jet fuel and all those wonderful tasty smells, they're leaking into the cockpit. That's exactly what you want to smell when you're feeling nauseous.
The golden era of travel ends in the 70s when Congress passes a law deregulating the airline industry, which means that the airlines have to recoup their money somehow, so they decide to start cutting all of these perks.
In 1994, Delta becomes the first U.S. airline to ban smoking, and by 2000 is banned on every single flight, domestic and international.
So we no longer have the lobster and champagne served in flight, but we also don't have constant vomiting.
Traveling by plane has always been a challenge for parents with a baby. Remember watching the Jetsons and loving the idea of flying cars? That idea wasn't as far-fetched as you might have imagined, because years before, the U.S. military tried to make personal aircraft a reality.
In the 1950s, the United States finds itself firmly ensconced in the jet age.
So there's this fascination among all these private companies and inventors with creating flying machines. And even the U.S. Armed Forces gets involved.
The military did realize that smaller aircraft, whether for reconnaissance mission, rescue missions, or even just to roll out telecommunications cable on the battlefield, would be essential. Ultimately, the Navy and Hiller Aviation create the XRQE-1, affectionately known as the rotor cycle.
Okay, hold on tight and away we go. The manufacturer believes the device will give America's Marines a new way to hit the enemy.
The rotor cycle is a miniaturized helicopter weighing about 300 pounds. There are two rotors, there's a tail boom, and a small engine.
What was so remarkable about it was that no tools were required to assemble it. It was geared in such a way that any soldier could put it together in under 10 minutes.
It can't carry much, but it's an individualized aircraft that is capable of moving that person over terrain that would otherwise represent a barrier to progress. And it does it at speeds approaching 70 miles an hour.
Bear in mind, traveling 70 miles an hour in an open cockpit vehicle is terrifying.
You can climb to 13,000 feet, and has a range of 155 miles without refueling.
Though the rotorcycle is supposed to be simple, flying it is anything but.
This was geared towards a non-pilot pilot. It's very easy to get spatial disorientation unless you are at very low altitude. If you're at a low altitude, well, now you're susceptible to ground fire. And being that you don't have a fuselage or, a cockpit, you could easily end up extremely dead.
It's a flop. Only 12 units are constructed and none see active service.
The military, along with Hiller, go back to the drawing board and they come up with the flying platform.
The flying platform is different than the rotorcycle in that you're not hanging from a spinning propeller. Instead, there are two fans that are producing lift by pushing down, and the soldier or Marine inside is being lifted off the ground from below. The operator would have to generate a hover using balance like you would riding a bicycle or riding a skateboard.
Flying platforms, right? They sound amazing, but nothing ever works like it should.
The center of gravity is really high. So if you go too much in one direction, you'll fall off.
Traditional aircraft have some countermeasure, something in place if everything goes wrong. A flying platform, the best thing you can do if it goes awry is to put your head between your knees and kiss your ass goodbye.
The military eventually scraps the project because it's too hazardous for personal use. And so civilians have to stick with the safer alternative of commuter traffic.
People have always dreamt of different ways to take flight. And though small personal flying devices didn't get up in the air, there was a time when we made giants float above us.
The history of rigid airships is a story full of excitement and adventure.
Today, when we think of blimps, we picture them floating over sporting events. But back in the day, this was actually a sort of elevated form of travel. They're like a vacation on their own. And you've got private staterooms, bars, gourmet restaurants, and you can't beat the view.
By 1914, blimp travel was here to stay. A German company had done 1,500 flights. They transported 10,000 people.
Airships are hailed as the future of travel.
In New York City, buildings are designed or modified to include airship docking stations high above the streets. Can you imagine this? You're flying through the air, you literally hook up at the top of the Empire State Building. That's where you get out. And then you go down from there, and you're just in the middle of the city. The idea of it is the most incredible thing.
There's only one small problem: the weather.
We had to contend with fog, rain, zero visibility, high winds, thunderstorms, and sandstorms.
Airships are built using a lightweight metallic alloy frame. The frame is then covered by fabric. They're not heavy, and the bigger you make it, the more sensitive it is to wind.
Once you're up there and bad weather hits, there's not much you can do.
Before long, there's a series of tragic airship crashes.
In 1928, there is an Italian airship that's returning from an expedition to the North Pole. It crashes and 8 people on board die, 6 are never found.
In 1930, British airship R-101, on its maiden voyage, crashes and kills 48 of the 54 people on board. And 3 years later, the American USS Akron crashes off the coast of New Jersey and kills 73 people.
Despite these accidents, in the 1930s, passengers continued to take hundreds of transcontinental flights. One airship charges $450 per ticket, more than $9,000 in today's money. But that one airship is about to change everything.
The world had never seen an aircraft as large as the famous Hindenburg. It was the proud possessor of 9 successful transatlantic crossings.
The Hindenburg, the biggest and most famous of the airships at the time.
Airships can use as a means of generating lift either helium or hydrogen. Helium is a safer way to go, but helium is harder to extract and harder to get. It is therefore more expensive. Hydrogen is cheap and easy, but it is very, very sensitive to sparks. It's flammable. And because of that, the Hindenburg bursts into flames and the entire airship is consumed in about 35 seconds.
Oh, it's like 400 or 500 feet into the sky, and it's smoke and it's flames now, and the flame is rising to the ground. All the humanity and all the fans just screaming around it.
35 people are killed, and almost all the survivors suffer from serious burns and injuries. It just goes to show you how quickly things can spiral out of control when hydrogen ignites.
After the Hindenburg disaster, it was pretty much the end of travel by airship.